Ultimate Giant of Fighting Monsters Game desu.
Borderlands 2 is the follow-up from Gearbox Software to its 2009 smash hit debut of debauchery, juvenile jokes, and Diablo-esque loot hunting rolled into a first-person shooter. Now that last sentence may sound like I disapproved of the first game. I did not. It's got a 9 out of 10 for you historical junkies. After just receiving a Guinness Book of World Records entry for the most guns ever for the first game, the new game has launched, and according to staff with the company, they've already resubmitted since the number of randomly generated weapons that you can find in the game is literally the same as it was before, but to the 10th power. In terms of gameplay, it's a standard first-person shooter. They've switched up a few of the buttons from the first game, but honestly I adapted within 20 minutes. Gearbox really hasn't strayed from the traditional FPS formula of aim and pull the trigger. There are 5 new characters to play, and each has a new and different special power, except for Axton, who still has the Commando Sentry turret that he deploys. There is a tutorial level to do some hand-holding for players new to the franchise, but within an hour or two, you should be level 5, especially if you're starting in multiplayer, and have access to your special abilities. The RPG progression aspects that made the game so popular the first time around are still here, with 3 experience point trees that take you down different strategic paths, although the final point that you can apply in each tree seems to be the same. One of the new features of progression are called badass ranks, which gives you a percentage bonus to a random list of stats you can choose from. These ranks are gained by completing in-game achievements, and every perk you earn applies to all characters you make, giving your testing sessions with new characters a big head start. Lastly, the developers have introduced a new currency to the game called Iridium, which is used for purchasing greater amounts of bank slots, bullet carrying capacity, and backpack slots. It's a great addition that you're always looking for in drops. As far as pluses for the gameplay side, it still feels very tight. Online play is responsive, assuming you connect to a decent host, and it's a familiar friend that you'll slip back into, or if you're into it the first time, you'll have no problems letting the hours slip away. At its core, it's still an addictive loot hunt and shooter. It has great RPG progression that will have you farming the big enemies repeatedly, and the redesigned menus make for easy navigation and buying and selling. On the minus side, reviving friends in online play is a little bit frustrating. The hit window, the area of detection for pressing and holding the button to revive a teammate, seems to be off. Sometimes it doesn't detect that you've pressed the button even though that you're being prompted on the screen. Sometimes you'll be prompted on the screen to press the button, which is the same button as reload, and reload your weapon instead, which can take a very, very long time depending on what weapon you're using. In a game where every split second matters, this is a big oversight. Also, whoever designed the new vehicle that you can earn throughout the game that drives even worse than the original game's vehicles should be buried up to his neck and let Salvatore the Gunzerker practice with their head. In terms of story, Borderlands 2 picks up 5 years after the band of 4 vault hunters successfully opened the vault. There was no great treasure, but by opening the vault, a rare and valuable mineral called iridium spread throughout the land. This attracted several of the megacorporations, but Hyperion, run by its charismatic and pompous new boss, Handsome Jack, staked a claim to use the iridium to civilize the Borderlands. You are in a group of 4 new vault hunters who have just arrived on Pandora, only to have Jack try to assassinate you. You barely survive, and thus begins your journey to join the Resistance and overthrow Jack. On the plus side, I have to say that streamlining the story to focus on one goal, killing a man that is obviously smarter than you, is a really great way to keep you engaged. There are many twists and turns, and although the story suffers from some classic blunders, why doesn't anyone ever shoot the bad guy while they're performing exposition? Once in a while. Overall, it's very well thought out. And the best new character, Tiny Tina. She's a big plus. On the minuses, it is a bit on the short side comparatively. It can be rather crude and sometimes feels very forced method. Overall, it's good, but there are a few times where you will roll your eyes. In terms of presentation, voice work is great and amusing. The music and background noise is appropriate, and the sweet, sweet sounds of various death contraptions firing into the bodies of your victims is most satisfying. Well, why are you looking at me like that? The game still holds its great visual effect. It looks great in its cel-shaded yet 3D style, I played and reviewed the PS3 version and did notice the same problem they had with the original game of texture pop-in. You'll teleport in and see that there's very low res for textures, walls, posters, etc. And after a couple seconds of loading, catching up, they look fine, but it can be annoying every once in a while. Pandora is fun to be in, but not very interesting to look at. I expect more muted browns, grays, and greens. There isn't a whole lot that stands out and pops. On the plus side, great audio and voice work, and for the most part, great graphics. On the minus side, occasional texture pop-in issues, drab color palettes for long-term exposure. Overall, I can say without a doubt that Gearbox has not only managed to repeat their successes with the first game, but even improve, albeit slightly, on the formula. The end of the game leaves room for many, many more adventures to be had in the Pandora space, and beyond, for that matter. And Borderlands 2 is a tight shooter with amusing characters, a preposterous storyline that's so much fun you'll gladly play along, and an OCD player's worst nightmare, as there is always something better to be had around every corner from loot drops. Multiplayer is fun and engaging, it's well worth your money. Our score is 8 out of 10 handsome jack masks. For more on Borderlands 2, keep it tuned to Gamersledge.com.